Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. Folks, today on the podcast, I'm joined by health and wellness coach Alish Brosnan to explore how women can navigate midlife with more energy, more confidence, and better balance. Moving beyond weight loss, Alish shares practical strategies to build sustainable habits, improve well-being, and create a lifestyle that supports long-term health and enjoyment. Alish, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Karl. I'm delighted to be here.
All the way from Kerry.
All the way from Kerry.
I feel very privileged when guests travel up to us.
I'm telling you, we've been doing well this year too, between Oscars and All Irelands. And
that Oscar, Kerry's going to hold on to that for a long time.
Big mileage out of that one.
So let's get to know you a little bit first. Tell us a bit about what you do and how you got into it.
I'm involved in health and fitness. I help women create healthier lifestyles, basically. And I got into it because I've always been involved in sports. I grew up in a sporting family and was competitive in athletics as a juvenile. So I went on to do a degree in exercise science then, was curious about the whole body and its relationship to exercise. And through that, then I got an interest in nutrition and an interest in stress management, the other elements of health. So I went on and did a master's degree in the States in health promotion and wellness management. And then I thought, that's it. Now I'm armed to change the world and create a healthier population, and realised then there was a big gap between what people know they should be doing and what they actually do.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what prompted me then to go on and do a doctorate in health psychology, so to better understand health behaviour. So that's me. I guess I'm passionate about exercise. That's probably my first love, aside from my two wonderful children. I'm into every kind of sport. I do triathlons, adventure racing, basketball, high rocks, mountain biking, bodyboarding. You name it, I do it. So that's my first love.
And tell us from a work perspective then, what kind of clients do you work with?
I work mostly with midlife women and helping them, I suppose, navigate perimenopause, menopause, and then the journey into aging as well.
And it's become very... trendy is not the word I'm looking for. It's become very open now, hasn't it? In the last, say, 5-10 years, chatting about perimenopause, menopause, like it's a topic of conversation now, where before it really wasn't.
Absolutely. And that's a very welcome change, I suppose, because it is a challenging time for people. It can be very challenging for some women. Some women glide through it a little bit easier, but there's certain things we can do, I suppose, and that's what I hope to share some tips with your listeners today in terms of navigating that journey and making it a little bit smoother for you and making it a little bit easier. So, because
there is a big gap, isn't there, between kind of knowing and putting it into action. Like the knowing and doing gap. Like the people see the content, they'll read the content, but they won't do it. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, a very good question. And I suppose for me, the way I would get around that and try to help motivate people, I suppose one of the tools that I would use is to get people really clear on what their goals are and what their vision is. Because I think quite often women come to me and they know they don't want to be where they are. They know, they want to, they don't want to have the lack of energy they have or the weight gain they have or whatever, but they're never that clear on where they want to actually go. So that's one of the first things I would do with women, is get very clear on their goals, very clear on their vision, help them create vision boards around that, even mind movies. I've started mind movies now.
Mind movies?
Oh, it's wonderful, Karl. I do my mind movie every morning. So a mind movie, basically, I've been doing vision boards for years. Yep. So I have all my images up around various different elements of my life, including my health and so on. But what I've done is I've just gone into Canva. We all know Canva now since lockdown. We've all been using it. And I create a movie. So all the images come in with movie with inspirational music in the background. So it's literally 2 minutes. I watch it every morning. So it keeps me aligned with my goals, keeps me focused, and keeps me present with what's important to me. So,
and what's in the movie?
It's all the images that are on my vision board, basically. Just collect it together and put in. And
so it's like an image collage.
Yeah, so it's great though. It's great.
I like that.
It's wonderful. Try it. Yeah. You'll be swimming around fast 3 or 4 times by the time.
It's using tech to really help you imagine or kind of map out where you're heading for.
It is. And it is really, I suppose, if you want to get technical with the health psychology side of it, it's identifying as if. So it's really important. So let's say weight loss is a goal for a client. So I have them imagine themselves as a slim person in a body that's temporarily too big for them. So they're identifying with that end goal of what they want to achieve. And that's really important. And then to use visualizations around that. I have a visualization CD that helps people to create new stories around that new goal that they want to achieve. And then I'd be a big stickler in language as well, talking as if it's happening and not when or maybe or if. So,
and do you find as a society we're more susceptible, we're more open to that type of content now?
Definitely.
10, 15 years ago now, that would have been very kind of
Yeah, woo-woo.
Absolutely, right?
Absolutely. But again, the research is there. You're 80% more likely to adhere to your goals if you identify with them. So, the researchers are supporting it now again. So it is a little bit woo, it is a little bit out there maybe for some people. But at a minimum, what I say to people is that it's there as a reminder of your goals. I'm a person who says, yes, I'm involved in everything. A person who says yes to everything. But sometimes my vision board is really good because it keeps me focused. It keeps me reminding, okay, yeah, I might love to take up rowing this year, but is it aligned to what my goal is in terms of my half Ironman in Portugal? No. So, it helps keep me focused. So that's at a minimum, a good use of them. Yeah.
Okay. Really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's great. We have really grown as a society. And, again, we see it in the sports teams leading, like the golfers. They've talked about visualization for a long, long time. We see the Irish rugby team do their mindful breathing. When things are all going to pot and someone scored a try, they get together, they close their eyes, they breathe, they slow. We're seeing it. And I suppose that reinforces the use of it in every day.
Absolutely. Mental imagery has been used for years, in various different fields, as you say. Yeah.
Deadly. Midlife is coming. Midlife is coming for all of us. So let's talk about our approach to health. For obviously for women is what you deal with, but men, there's men too. We're all going through midlife. That our approach to health needs to change a little bit.
It does, and I suppose our bodies are evolving, and so our approach to our health and fitness needs to evolve as well. So what worked for me and my clients in my 20s and 30s certainly doesn't work for me today. So we do need to kind of adjust and tweak what we're doing in relation to it. And if we look at, I suppose, what the challenges are when it comes to midlife, particularly for women, a lot of clients come to me in relation to weight gain. So, we're from the age of 30, we're losing 3 to 5% muscle mass per decade. By the time we hit 60, that goes up to 8%. When we go through menopause, women gain on average up to 5 kg. So there's lots of changes going on. Bone density, we can lose 20% of our bone density through menopause. Brain health is real, trust me. Estrogen doesn't just, or menopause doesn't just affect the ovaries, it really does affect the brain. If you think of some of the symptoms of menopause in terms of brain fog and memory loss and panic attacks, they're all neurological. So there's lots of things going on, lots of challenges going on for women during this time. So it's about adopting, health behaviours that are going to help navigate that. And I suppose for your male listeners, or maybe for you who hasn't, people who mightn't have been through menopause yet, one analogy that came to me just the other day, and I think it's quite an apt one, is that menopause is like, have you been whitewater rafting, Karl?
Yep.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Absolutely.
But that's what menopause is like. You're going through an inflatable raft down these, super fast river, very turbulent. You're trying to avoid obstacles and you think you're just about made it. And then suddenly there's this big rapid and you fall down and then suddenly you're catching your breath and something else hits you. So that's what menopause can tend to be like. But when we adopt certain health behaviours, we can kind of slow down the pace of the river, we can reduce the obstacles, we can lower the dip of the rapids. So yeah, it's still going to be a bit bumpy, but there's certain things that we can do that are going to help make that journey a bit easier. Okay,
you're naturally bringing us to that content. So let's chat through some of the things that people can do.
So, I use a framework that I call feminist, so a mix between female wellness. And so the F is for fitness, the E is for enjoyment, the M is for mental health, the N is for nutrition, the E is for empowerment, S for social circle or social connections, and S for sleep. So that's kind of it in a summary. But if I was to start with one, I would definitely start with the first one, which happens to be fitness, because cardiorespiratory fitness, this is the strongest predictor for our overall health, our longevity, and to reducing our risk of disease. So it's the most important one. And you, more than anybody else, know the importance of that, Karl. And I suppose for midlife women, what we need to be looking at is moving. Number one, looking for opportunities to be active, building up your cardio if you can, up to 30 minutes, at least 5 days a week. That's what we're looking at.
And it is important to say that, no matter what cardio level you're at, there are huge benefits to getting a little bit fitter. And if you're a total beginner, you have it is a big change. But actually, you've all the benefits to gain from moving a little bit more.
Absolutely. And then there's the strength training. I think as a nation, we're great for getting out walking, especially now these nice evenings, You'll see loads of people out there doing their walking. It's their number one activity in Ireland. But strength training, I'm in the gym and I'm mostly there with 20 and 30-year-old women. I'm my mid-50s. There's very few women my age there lifting weights. And it's super important when it comes, we talked about those changes a few moments ago in terms of fat-free mass declining and fat mass increasing. So when it comes to strength training, it's going to help preserve that muscle. It's going to help to keep it and actually even grow it a little bit as well for us. So for bone health, strength training is super important. For mental benefits, it's super important. So there's many benefits to be adding strength training in as well.
Sleep is crucial.
Sleep is absolutely crucial, and it's one of the things I probably change the most. I'm somebody who loves to live fully and would definitely have tended to burn the candle at both ends. So it's the one that I've tweaked the most, I would say, as I've gone through. I'm postmenopausal now, and it's the one that I've had the greatest benefits from. So I'm religiously up at 6 o'clock every morning. It's all about consistency, and I'm religiously, aside for the odd night out, in bed, getting ready for bed at 10 and asleep for 10:30. And that's made a world of a difference. And like you, Karl, I'm very active, and training takes up a lot of time and energy. So I need that sleep now for recovery. I could have gotten away with it in my 20s and 30s.
As you get older, it changes.
But I definitely need that sleep for recovery now.
And what sleep hacks have you found that have really worked for you, that have helped you to improve? Obviously, that consistency of going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time. Anything else that you found?
In terms of that, the best thing that I found is, did you mention apps?
No, just generally.
It's the phone. So I've one of my clients, actually, amazing lady that I'm with at the moment. Phone was a challenge for her, so I was researching different apps for her to use, and I found one called Be Present. I'm not linked to it or anything, but it's great because it just shuts my phone off. And even if I go to pick up my phone,
I use Freedom. Yeah, Freedom's brilliant. It's unbelievable.
And that's the biggest thing I find with people and with clients and women that I'm with. It's the phone, it's the scrolling, it's the mindlessness, and before you know it, it's 11 or 12, or even when they wake during the night. That because that can be quite common in midlife as well, that they're getting on the phone. So if you can get that phone out of the way, and even that brings me over to as well the other piece of social connection, which is another piece of the puzzle, I suppose, when it comes to midlife wellness. And I think we all found during COVID, when social connection was taken away from us, the impact it had on our mental and physical health. And we know that social isolation and loneliness, they account for 26 to 29% of our risk of dying prematurely, which is the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, which is quite big. And one of our things around social connection, why we're not reaching out, is because we're reaching for our phone instead of reaching for each other.
The importance of in-person connection.
Completely. We're spending 6 hours a day on our phones in Ireland on average.
Mine is.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed to say it, but
this is where the apps, because I downloaded the Be Present and I'm using it myself now, and I find it brilliant. So I suppose the importance of social connection in midlife, is super important as well, because we tend to be, busy with the kids, busy with the parents, busy with everything else. So it's really important. The research tells us we should have 3 close people that we could call in a crisis. Oh, yeah. And it's amazing how many of us don't have that. And even this is a US-based study now, but they found that 25% of people didn't even have one person they could call.
Wow.
So the importance of making that time for connection. And if you look even to the Blue Zone studies, where they looked at what was helping people live long and healthy lives, 3 of the 9 commonalities between those communities were related to connection. So it's super important when it comes to our health.
That's the importance also of teams, isn't it? And going to, like we see it in West Cork, like the men's sheds, actually one of the pubs is a really cool thing. They do knitting on a Thursday. And it's like knitting and coffee.
I love it.
Brilliant. And it's jammed. And they do crochet and they do whatever. It's brilliant. And that's full of people who will be sitting at home. Like they're not in the pub to drink. They're having tea and coffee and biscuits and whatever. And they're having the chats. And it's a real important part of our health that we have to focus on and develop.
Yeah.
Like in the cities, it's one thing, but in the rural communities, it's very important.
Absolutely. And it's not one we speak about when it comes to our health and wellness that often. We talk about the exercise and the nutrition, but a lot of the research is coming out and it's showing that it's even more of an important predictor of our health than healthy eating and exercise. So it's one we're going to have to pay more and more attention to as our society evolves into kind of contactless,
Change is hard though, isn't it? Like behavioural change is a very difficult thing to do. And like we're chatting about that midlife kind of idea of, for women, perimenopause, menopause, we're chatting about some changes to make. Behavioural change is hard. And
it is.
And your vision board, your mind movie, like they're all aids to help that change. Let's chat about that a bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, and it is. And for midlife women, there's a couple of things I find. So generally when they come to me, they've been through every diet known to womankind. And that's their experience of their approaches to health and well-being. So it's changing everything on a Monday morning, everything. And, hanging in there for a week or two and then falling off the wagon. So from when they come to me, it's really my job with them really is a big mindset shift. So I'm very much about starting slow, starting small, and being consistent. And any health behavior we want to develop, it's all about starting small and starting consistent. So there's a couple of benefits for that. One, it's going to help the habit formation. And two, it helps build their confidence. So I start women with walking 10 minutes a day. At least 10 minutes a day, every day. So they're building that habit, they're wiring those connections, they're getting into that routine, and they're building their own self-efficacy that I can do this. This is doable. It takes a little bit of trust at the beginning, so they're so used to changing everything that when I just say, no, that's all you have to do. You have to get your 7 hours sleep. You have to have a healthy breakfast this week, and we start and we build and we build. And people don't, I think, often recognize the compounding effect of habits.
Yep.
And, so when they're with me, by week 5, they're at a very different starting point than they were when they were at week 1. They're up to 30 minutes, they're up to healthy meals every day, they're up to, and so on. So it's that compounding effect of small habits done regularly is massive. So that's one of the biggest things I find with my approach and how it can be different to what most midlife women are used to in terms of the dieting culture.
Well, we still live in a society that wants everything instantly. So going to lose a stone by by next week. It doesn't work like that. And then we seek out the ways with which to do that. And we're seeing that with GLP-1s now. That it's become the Atkins of our time, where people are jumping on it for the crack.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it is a big mindset shift. But I think when, my approach with women, when they get really clear on their goals, they can really start to identify with them. They really want them, and they really start to take steps, and they start to trust me in my approach. And then they start to feel the benefits by week 3 or week 4. Like I've one lady at the moment now, she's wonderful. She's 64. And so I'm not a big scales fan at all. So I would usually encourage weighing, or not encourage, but limit weighing, let's say, to once a month. And that would be body comp as well. But so she came on to me on week 3 and she was like, oh, Alish, I have a confession to make. I'm like, okay, what's this? I stepped on the scales, and she said, I was so disappointed. I hadn't lost any weight in the 3 weeks, and I thought I was doing great. And I said, okay, well, let's call her Mary. So Mary, what were your goals when you started out? And so she went through them. So yeah, so you're able to get up off the floor after your strength training much quicker and easier. You're able to walk your dog, which you hadn't been able to do in months because he was too big and strong for you. Now you feel confident enough to control him. You're able to go away at the weekend and have great fun at a music festival, but manage your food and your exercise during that. So it was all these positive non-scale victories. And so that's what I kind of come back to remind people of. And that then becomes their internal motivation to keep moving forward. So she was like, yeah, you're right. I'm doing great, clap on the back. And she's back on track and flying through it now again. So yeah, it's just working with people around those little subtle shifts.
For anyone who feels overwhelmed listening in, knowing that they need to make changes, but I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I just can't go. I'm too busy. The kids, I have too many kids, or whatever. What do you say to them?
Give me a call.
Obviously.
I'm passionate about this. I just love seeing the change in women, and when they can turn their lives around and start to prioritize their own health and their own energy and their own joy and put themselves first for a change. And there's very simple things you can do. And I think, again, back to the exercise, it's the one thing where you will find an immediate benefit. Nobody goes out for a walk and comes back and feels worse. So I think that's one of the first things that you can actually just get out and get out, put the runners on, get out for a 10-minute walk today, and take it from there. One little step at a time really is the big thing.
And self-compassion is important. Absolutely.
I'm very much about that, about self-care, about kindness. And again, I think we have a culture of kind of beating ourselves up a little bit, and particularly, I suppose, with that whole dieting mentality that, again, women who come to me have gone through. And diets set you up for failure. You don't fail them, but a lot of women internalize that failure. So it's about having compassion for yourself and, learning from your mistakes. So I use trackers with women so they can, in a daily pen and paper, old style, they can track and see their progress. And what I love to see is, if something hasn't happened, I want to know the reason why. And I'm happy to see that, because then we identify their barriers, we can find solutions, and we can move and grow from there. So it's a positive, we see it as a positive thing. So a lot of this is about reframing how we see things as well.
And, when people do fall off the wagon, that's very common too, getting back on. Chat to me about that, because loads of people listening in, not just in midlife, but at any stage of their life, who try to get healthy, they fall off the wagon. Talk to me around that in terms of getting level again to restart or to reset?
Yeah. So again, with this approach of doing it, small amounts and just doing it gradually, you're never really fully off anything. You might miss a day, and really it's about looking at what can we learn from that. Okay, was that because the kids were sick? Was that because of the weather? Do we need to buy a rain jacket? Was that because of a meeting took priority? So it is about finding what the barrier is and identifying solutions to that and learning from it. And then it's less likely to happen the next time. So it is really using it as a learning and an empowering, turning it around into an empowering situation and moving forward with it then.
Okay, yeah. So you're turning it into a positive very much.
Yeah. So it's telling us, because nothing's going to be perfect, and life isn't perfect, so we're just trying to do the best we can, and if we can do that, 90% of the time, happy days, And
of course, taking that long-term mindset's important too.
Absolutely, yeah. Keeping your eye, I suppose, on the end goal, absolutely, and keeping focused on that. And I suppose one thing too, in terms of the falling off the wagon and beating ourselves up a bit. One thing that I use a lot is gratitude, and encourage my clients to use it as well. And I think and gratitude and reframing. And I suppose even for me, as say a woman now in my mid-50s, I went through a phase of kind of reminiscing on the good old days, and gosh, the times I used to do for 10k, or
compare and despair. I call that. Yeah,
there you go. That's a good term for it. So I'll borrow that one.
Borrow that one.
So I was comparing and despairing.
Because that's people do it. We've seen it for 25 years. Yeah.
I had an aha moment then, and at one point, and I can't remember what it was. It was a quote I read or what it was, but it was like, gosh, my 90-year-old self is going to look back at me in my 50s and think, gosh, I wish I could do what she's doing. So it's that reframing and think, I'm never going to be as young as I am now, and having that, and I suppose that gratitude for the life that we have. And I suppose also, I my brother passed away at 52 in the prime of his midlife, very fit, active guy, and so I suppose I've experienced firsthand how fragile life is, and that's why I kind of embrace it and live it fully, and encourage my clients to do the same. So I think when we have that sense of gratitude and appreciation for our life and how lucky are we, there's so much we have to be grateful for. And you were talking about how do you motivate someone who doesn't, finding it overwhelming, but reframing it and turning it around and thinking, gosh, I'm so lucky I have 2 arms, I'm 2 legs, I can get out and walk, I can see where I'm going, I can hear the birds. I think bringing that into it as well can play a big part in it as well. And it certainly does for me, and I try to pass that on to my clients as well.
I think we've covered a lot of ground for people who, again, of all age profiles, midlife and beyond, in terms of reframing your mindset, that long-term approach, turning negatives into positives. Really important kind of content for people, without a doubt. If people want to follow you on Instagram or get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm alishbrosnan.com is my website. It's AILIS, no H. And I'm on Instagram, Alish Brosnan as well. And that's probably the best place to find me, or come down to Kerry and join me for a run.
Come to Killarney at any point, Susie, at any point. Well, thank you so much for coming to see you here today. We really appreciate it, and keep up all the good work. It's great. It's really good. Folks, we really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry. As ever, you know where we are, at Karl Henry PT on Instagram, Real Health and Independence.ie, and on the Irish Independent website. And we'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.